This is Miss Russo, and as promised, we are going to be talking more about active listening. What is active listening and what is this all about? Well, after today's discussion and lesson, you will be able to answer these questions of what is active listening? Why is it important to conflict resolution? And why is it so difficult to do? What is active listening? Active listening is a way of listening and responding to another person that improves mutual understanding. It's a way of paying attention to the other people that can make them feel that, you're hearing them. This type of listening is called active because it requires certain behaviors of you, the listener. Now, I hope you're actively listening right now. And why is it that you should actively listen? Well, our brain works 4 times the speed that someone can speak. You have to actively focus on listening so that your mind doesn't wander. Oh my gosh, how easy is that to do? It enriches you and those around you and guides other areas of your life. It can build trust and respect between people and prevent misunderstandings that can lead to conflict, frustration, or hurt feelings. Gosh, how many times has that happened in our lives? While listening to other people's point of view, you may just learn something new and fascinating. That is a very important statement. While listening to others' point of view, you may learn something new and fascinating. Please write that in your notes. It's a very important fact about active listening. The benefits of active listening, well, it forces people to listen attentively to others. It tends to open people up to get them to say more, shows empathy, and builds relationships. Yes, that is what active listening does, and it benefits not only you, but the other person. The main goal to active listening is to maximize your understanding of the other's perspective and to minimize their defensiveness and your own too. How many times have you had conversations with your parents or friends or someone else that because no one is listening to each other, everything gets blown out of proportion and something that's very small turns into something very big? And then here comes the drama, right? So that's why active listening serves a purpose. It really does. So here are 6 key concepts of active listening. Display involvement in what the person is saying. Maybe you're shaking your head. Carefully observe the person speaking. You're looking directly at them. Resist distractions. Hopefully you're not looking out into the woods or looking out into space. If you're doing that, you're not letting that person who's speaking know that you're paying attention to them. Try to stay focused on what is being said. Ask for clarification on anything that you don't fully understand. That means you need to ask some questions. And delay making judgments about what is said. That is important as well. Don't make quick judgments until we get the full understanding and the full story of what the other person is trying to convey. Did you know that active listeners speak 30% of the time and listen 70% of the time? That means that they are not speaking for most of the conversation. Sometimes we have to try hard not to interrupt. The only acceptable reason is to clarify or confirm what has been said. This is why being an active listener is so difficult. A lot of the time, we want to be the one talking. And another reason is that when people are preoccupied with current life stresses or difficult situations, it's hard for them to listen. You have other things on your mind. Anxiety can make it hard to listen. Being angry at that person who is talking also makes it hard to listen. Man, that really makes it difficult. It's hard to be quiet when you're angry. Having an idea in mind of what a person should do makes it hard to listen to that person's point of view. So here is where that judgment is coming in. You don't want to judge prematurely until you get the full story in that other person's point of view. Let's talk about the active listening barriers. We have the external barriers. Those are things that are happening and distracting around us. And then we also have the internal barriers within us as a listener, and the barriers within the speaker themselves. So some of those external barriers, we have noises around us, we have clutter around us, and we have other interruptions like, oh my gosh, my cat just walked across my computer. Oops, I'm sorry about that. Very sorry. Oh, I gotta go take out the trash. Sorry, I gotta go do that. So let's talk about some internal barriers within the listener. There's comparing. That's where you're comparing yourself to the other person, sizing them up. Your own personal experience gets in the way. Automatic talking, where you just, you're not really listening. Remember that 30% should be the listener not talking. Mind reading and judging, those kind of go hand in hand, where you've already judged the person no matter what they have said, and you're kind of predicting, mind reading, predicting what they're trying to say, predicting what they might say. Daydreaming, looking outside the window, not looking at the speaker. And perceptual errors, meaning that, maybe what you really were thinking and judging is not really the truth. It's an error on your part because you weren't really being an active listener. Barriers within the speaker can possibly be expectations. They might have a set expectation of you as the listener, and you're not following through what their expectations are. And then that leads to somebody being upset and their feelings not being heard. Avoidance. The speaker may not be telling you a very important part of the story. They're avoiding telling you for some reason, maybe embarrassment. Speaking in code. Sometimes a speaker is not clearly communicating and you don't understand what they're saying. And boundaries. The speaker needs to know their boundaries. There are some things that maybe you should not be the person that they're telling this information to. So they need to know their boundaries. So do you have to be an active listener all the time? No, you don't. When you have routine interactions with someone, you don't really need to be active listening the whole time. And physical emergencies, if there's an emergency situation, that may not be the greatest time to start your active listening skills. We need to be a little bit more swift. Now, appropriate times to be an active listener is in class or when watching a lesson, conflict situations, that could be with parents, friends, whomever, giving and receiving feedback, brainstorming, problem solving, and seeking your peers' cooperation, or anyone's cooperation at that matter. So there's some steps of active listening that we will be talking about in our next lesson, which will be listen with verbal and nonverbal cues, how to use and when to use those questioning procedures, when you want to reflect and paraphrase what you hear the other person saying, and how to agree and come to a solution when there's a conflict. And why do you think many people have a hard time with active listening? Why is active listening so hard to do when it can be so beneficial? I will have that posted for you to answer, and you can turn that in right after watching this lesson. Thank you for listening.